Christina, welcome. And as a way of starting, if you could just share a little bit about your family and tell us a little bit about your girls.
I have a husband, I'm married, and I've got two girls. I have one who is going to be 10 in February, that's Abigail, she's in the 4th grade. And I have Madeline, who is going to be 8, she's in 2nd grade. They have two totally different personalities. Abigail, my oldest one, is very rule conscious and likes to go by the book in straight line. And then Madeline is my child who floats around more, tries different things. They're two very different personalities between the two.
More of your spirited child.
Yes.
Do you stay home with your kids full time, or
I do. I stay home with them full time, and I work with my husband, but it's flexible, so if they're sick, I can easily stay home.
All right, well, we'll talk about your girls in a second, but I'd like you to think back to when you were their age and what your attitudes about smoking were at that stage of your life.
When I was younger, I think I have lots of aunts and uncles who smoked, because I think that was the thing to do when they were that age, and then they never stopped. And then my dad actually smoked a pipe, and I can remember him smoking a pipe when I was younger, and going downstairs and smelling that smell and telling him that he smelt and I did not like it whatsoever. And then he stopped smoking because I told him that.
How old were you when you told him that?
You know, when I tell that, I want to say I was 6 when I told him that. And he stopped ever since. Then he stopped smoking.
So you did him a real favor.
I think so. He hasn't smoked since.
Okay, and your mom, did she smoke, or she wasn't a smoker?
My mom told us stories when we were younger that she smoked once in her entire life. Her brother and her wanted to try it, and they stole a pack of cigarettes from their uncle, went up to their parents' bathroom, shut the door, and smoked the cigarettes, and then got sick and didn't like it at all and never touched it.
Yeah. That's great when that happens. Sometimes kids try it and like it, and then they become regular smokers. The ones that get sick or hate it, you weren't at high risk to begin with.
Yes.
So, I wish it were always that easy to let kids just try it, they'll hate it, and be done with it. But we really need to send a message that it's not okay to even try it, because some kids will try it and like it.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to you as a mom now and your kids. What message have you given your children about smoking?
Just kind of like my mom telling me the story about her, that's how I bring up the subject of smoking with my kids, a story. My girls are very, they have a high imagination, very creative, and they want to know stories. So I'll tell them stories. Like the story when I'd tell them I went down the stairs, because my parents still live in the house that we grew up in, so they can visualize it too. I tell them that my dad was sitting in the chair smoking a pipe. I went downstairs and I told them that he smelled. I didn't like the way he smelled, and I will tell them that story. And then he stopped. I'll tell them the story about my mom smoking with her brother. And so they get not to smoke through stories.
What I really like about that story is that you have figured out that kids learn better from stories than from just a bunch of abstract rules or principles or information, that they really see things more concretely. And so the story about going downstairs and Dad smoked and I told him it was stinky, I didn't like it, that does something really good at an unconscious level too. It plants the message that smoking is smelly, and that if you want people to like the way you smell, then you don't want to smoke. And as kids get older, particularly adolescents, even preteens, how they come across to the opposite sex is real important. And one of the arguments we suggest parents talk about is how smoking makes your teeth yellow and your breath smell and your clothes smell and it's stinky and disgusting. And that even in one study, kids that don't smoke don't like to kiss kids that do smoke. So there are a lot of reasons that you've now laid a good story foundation for. Encourage parents to think about talking to their kids, particularly young kids, in stories as well as facts.
And they want to hear that story.
Yeah.
Even though I've told it 20, 30 times already in the past 3 years, they're always saying, can we hear that story again? And I know it's working because this past weekend we were at my sister's house in Virginia, We're having lunch, and Abigail said to me, Sammy, who's her cousin, liked your story about telling Opa not to smoke because he smelled. So I know she's passing it on to her younger cousins. I like to talk to them when we're in the car, just because I've noticed that if we're in the car and I'm looking forward and they're looking forward and it's not confrontational, it's not eye to eye, face to face, they're much more apt to ask me questions or answer my questions if I question them about things. So we can get conversations going much easier in the car. And normally it is, I try to bring it up when we're alone, when I just have one in the car and the other one's not in the car, because then they're really open. So we'll do that. And again, stories. They're all about stories, my girls.
Christina, thinking about Maddie as your spirited child, can you think of any advice you'd give to other parents about how to influence a spirited child not to smoke later on?
I think my biggest thing would be to stand back and let the child, if the child's doing something, then bring it up with them. Especially with my spirited child, a lot of times if I tell her the way it's supposed to be done, or you need to do it this way, she'll look me straight in the eye and go, I know how to do it, I'm going to do it my way. And I kind of let her try that. Not that saying to let her try the smoking, but if you see her going in the direction, then you can broach the subject. But it's not something you can just bring up like that with the spirited child.
Could be more subtle. What do you think about smoking? Why do you think it might not be such a good thing to do? And put it a little bit more in her court. Maybe letting her do some research as she gets older. Thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate your effort.
Thank you, I appreciate it.